Good morning. Please state your name, spelling your last for the record.
Hi, my name is Amari White. My last name is spelled W-H-I-T-E.
Tell the members of the jury a bit about yourself.
I have a husband and 2 twin boys at home, which means I definitely have my hands full. When my husband and I aren't working, he coaches our boys' middle school basketball team, and I coach the cheerleaders. I'll admit, a lot of times there's really not all that much to cheer for. The team's not very good, but I try my best not to blame the coach.
Where do you and your family live?
We live in Bellevue, which is in Truman, which is in the 12th district of Midlands.
What is it like to live in District 12?
Our neighborhood definitely has its challenges. You know, there are a lot of blue-collar, like working-class people who work really hard, but there are a lot of pay cuts, layoffs recently. A lot of people are struggling financially. I think that's part of the reason why it seemed like everybody was really excited when Elizabeth Ginger announced that she was running for mayor.
What was so exciting about Dr. Elizabeth Ginger as a candidate for mayor?
Well, she was from District 12. You know, and as far as I know, no one from District 12 has ever run for mayor before, so that was pretty exciting. She talked a lot in her campaign about helping out the struggling families in our town, and I think that that really spoke to people of District 12, you know, my family included.
Now, from your perspective as a District 12 voter, what was the election like?
As compared to past elections that I've lived in Bellevue for, this election just seemed really strange to me.
Why do you say that?
Well, in the weeks leading up to Election Day, you know, my family received a bunch of phone calls and text messages about Election Day that we'd never received in the past.
How many phone calls did you and your family receive?
We received 3 phone calls in total. I received 2, my husband received 1. And then I also got a text message, all from the same phone number.
Did you recognize that phone number?
No. It was the same number for, you know, all three phone calls and the text message, but I didn't recognize the number. It did sound like the same guy on the phone every time, though. He's a pretty distinctive voice.
I want to talk more about this first phone call that you received. Could you tell us what happened?
Yeah, I answered the phone. It was a couple weeks before Election Day, and the guy on the other end of the phone said that he was from the Midlands Election Commission.
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Your Honor, we're not using this for the truth of the matter asserted. We're not saying that this man was from the Election Commission. In fact, we're saying the opposite, and that these statements are not true.
Your Honor, the truth is that he said he was from the Election Commission, and him claiming to be from the Elections Commission is the truth of the matter asserted. And that statement is inadmissible.
And I overrule the objection.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, you were telling us more about this first phone call that you received. Can you continue your answer?
Yeah, the guy said he was from the Midlands Election Commission, and he told me that I had to own a home in District 12 to vote for mayor.
And how did this make you feel?
You know, I honestly felt a little targeted. You know, my family lives in an apartment complex, so we don't actually own a home. So I felt like this was trying to discourage me from voting, from doing my civic duty.
Now, moving to the next phone call that you received, can you tell us about that one?
Yeah, it was pretty much the same as it was before. The guy called, I answered the phone, and this time he told me that I had to have a college degree to vote for mayor in my town.
Do you have a college degree?
No, and again, at this point, I just felt like someone was really trying to discourage me from voting. I was getting a little upset about it, to be honest.
You also mentioned a text message from the same number.
Yes.
Tell us about the text message.
Okay, it was Election Day, actually, that I got this one. I was getting ready for work, and I had a text on my phone. It said that I could vote on March 17th and March 18th, but if I decided to vote on March 18th, the lines would be shorter.
Would you recognize this text message if I showed it to you in court today?
Yeah, I'm sure I would.
I'm approaching opposing counsel with proposed plaintiff 1. May I approach the witness with the same?
Thanks.
Mrs. White, what did I just hand you?
This is the text message that I received.
And that's the same number at the top?
Yeah, it's the same one, 625-555-1935.
Is it a fair and accurate copy of the text message you received?
Yeah, it looks exactly the same as when I got it.
At this time, plaintiff moves to admit plaintiff 1 into evidence.
Your Honor, I would object to specifically to the number on the top of the document.
On the grounds, counsel.
Your Honor, that it's hearsay.
Response, counsel.
We are not using this number for the matter that it asserts. And numbers actually do not assert value, have no assertion of value of assertion. So these are not actually hearsay.
Your Honor, the truth value is that that is who the message came from.
I'm going to admit the document. I will certainly entertain any requests to include something to that extent in the jury instructions when this case goes to the jury.
Yes, Your Honor.
It will be admitted.
Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. White, I'd like to now move your attention to Election Day itself. Did you try to vote?
I did. At this point, I didn't know what I was going to experience. When I got to the polls, the phone calls and the text message, I really felt discouraged, but I decided that I was going to try to vote anyway.
Tell us what happened when you went to the polling place.
Okay, so I showed up at the place, I got in line. There was probably 250 people in line, which was really long. I was there for probably 2 hours. And then there was this guy who said he was an election official. He introduced himself as Bailey Reynolds, and he handed me a flyer.
And what did this flyer say?
It said the same thing that I had received the phone calls about, that I had to have a college degree to vote for mayor, and that I had to own a home. It also said that I had to be able to prove these things at the door, which was really upsetting. I don't have a house deed or a college diploma, and I certainly don't carry them on me.
Would you recognize this flyer if I showed it to you in court?
Yeah.
I'm approaching opposing counsel with proposed plaintiff 2. May I approach the witness?
Okay.
Ms. Amari, do you recognize that document?
This is the flyer.
And is it a fair and accurate copy of the flyer you received on Election Day?
Yeah, it looks exactly the same as when Bailey Reynolds gave it to me.
Plaintiff moves to admit plaintiff 2 into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
It will be admitted.
Mrs. White, what did you do when you received this flyer?
At this point, I was feeling really discouraged and a little fed up. I've been receiving phone calls and text messages, and now this guy, he handed me a flyer, and all of it said that I couldn't vote. So I asked the guy to show me some ID. If he was really from the Election Commission, I wanted to know.
Did he show you his ID?
No. So I took his picture, and then he seemed to get really panicked. He walked away really fast when, I threatened to call the cops.
Now, would you recognize the picture that you took of this man?
Yeah.
I'm approaching opposing counsel for proposed plaintiff 3. May I approach the witness?
Okay.
Is that the picture that you took on Election Day?
It is, yeah.
And is it a fair and accurate copy of that picture?
It looks the same as when I took it with my phone.
Plaintiff moves to admit plaintiff 3 into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
It'll be admitted.
Now, had you ever seen this man prior to Election Day, March 17th?
No, I had never seen him before, but I did kind of recognize his voice. It sounded like the guy who had, called me all those times before Election Day.
How do you know that?
Well, I had my suspicions when he introduced himself as Bailey Reynolds, so I decided that I wanted to figure it out for sure if that was the guy. So I pulled out my phone and I dialed that phone number to see, if it was the same person.
Did anyone answer?
The Bailey Reynolds guy did, yeah. As soon as I dialed the number, he picked up his phone. I saw him pick up his phone from his pocket and put it to his ear.
And did he say anything?
No. Well, he didn't really have to. He turned around and he looked at me. I had my phone to my ear and he had his phone to his ear. At that point, he pretty much ran away.
Now, Mrs. White, I just have one more thing to ask you. If you saw another picture of this man, do you think you'd recognize it?
Yeah, I'm sure I would.
At this time, plaintiff moves to admit plaintiff, or we would like to admit plaintiff 4 into evidence. This is a criminal record of a man named Casey French. Pursuant to Rule 8038, it is not hearsay, and it is accompanied by a certificate of authenticity.
Your Honor, I would object to lack of foundation at this point.
Counsel, do you have a response to that?
We are using this to identify the man who handed Mrs. White the misinformation on election day. She has stated that she would recognize another photo of this man if I showed it to her, and that is what I'm using this for.
Counsel, when you are objecting on the basis of foundation, what exactly are you referring to?
Your Honor, this witness has never seen that document before. If opposing counsel would like to simply show the photo from the arrest record, I wouldn't object to that, but she's never seen the document of arrest record before, and I would object to the arrest record specifically being improper character evidence.
I'm going to overrule the foundation objection at this time. Do you have a response to improper character evidence?
Absolutely, Your Honor. We are not using this to show any conformity therewith or propensity. It is being used for identification purposes. Mrs. White has said that she would recognize another picture of this man, and we are using it to get identification of the man, specifically that he introduced himself as Bailey Reynolds, but he in fact is Casey French. We would like to get his name on the record.
May I respond, Your Honor, once again, if opposing counsel's only purpose is for identification purposes, then I would request that the document be redacted exclusively except for the photo.
May I respond?
Before you do, in order for it to be useful for identification, we would retain the photograph and the name that was associated with that photograph. So you're asking that we redact the criminal history that's associated with that name and photograph?
Yes, Your Honor.
Counsel response to that?
We could constructively redact it, but to understand fully the identification of this man, we would need the entire document.
Counsel, that sounds a lot like propensity.
Would you like a copy?
No, counsel.
We can constructively redact the other portions.
So you are offering this document and asserting that you will not be using it for any propensity
Absolutely.
testimony. All right, counsel, please feel free to keep plaintiff to that assertion on those grounds.
Yes, Your Honor.
On those grounds, I will accept the document, and there will be a limiting instruction to the jury explaining that it cannot be used for propensity.
Yes, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
May I approach the witness with it? Mrs. White, I want you to look at this picture and tell me if you recognize that man.
Yeah, it looks exactly like the guy that I took a picture of, but on this it says that his name is Casey French, and this guy introduced himself to me as Bailey Reynolds.
Do you see anywhere on this document where it says the name, Bailey Reynolds?
Oh yeah, it says here that one of the aliases of Casey French is Bailey Reynolds, so
Objection, Your Honor, that's beyond the scope of the limiting instruction.
It doesn't go to propensity, so I'm going to allow it.
Yes, Your Honor.
Could you continue your answer, Mrs. White?
Right, well, I was just saying that it says that Bailey Reynolds is an alias of Casey French, so I guess this guy's name is Casey French.
And do you see Mayor Heisman's name anywhere on this criminal record?
Yeah, his name's on it a couple times, I guess it was the guy.
Objection, Your Honor, that goes to propensity, that Max Heisman has association with Casey French.
The propensity relates to the character evidence objection, so I don't think that they have gone so far as to show propensity of these past acts. If we do get to that, certainly feel free to renew your objection at this time. It's overruled.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mrs. White, do you see Mayor Heisman's name anywhere on this document?
Yeah, it's on here a couple times actually. It says that he was this guy's lawyer. Mayor Heisman was Casey French's lawyer.
At this time, we have no further questions. Thank you for your testimony. May I publish evidence to the jury?
You may.
I ask that the witness, oh, I'm sorry.
The witness may not be excused.
Cross-examination, Your Honor. May I proceed? Good morning, Ms. White. You didn't want Max Heisman to win the election, did you?
I don't know. I didn't vote for either of the candidates. I wrote in a candidate.
Well, you were an Elizabeth Ginger supporter, were you not?
I mean, at one point I went to a rally.
Well, you even wanted to volunteer for her campaign, didn't you?
Yeah, at the beginning, you know, I didn't really have the time, you know, I work full-time and I have 2 kids at home, you know.
You did donate money to Ms. Ginger's campaign, didn't you?
In the beginning, it was like the 10 bucks I had in my pocket, yeah.
So you did donate money to her campaign,
Right, 10 bucks.
and you saved the thank you letter that you got, right?
I did, I thought it was very well written.
Well, I'd like to talk to you about some of the things you just said on direct examination.
Sure.
Now, you talked about some phone calls that you received.
Yeah, I received a couple of them, my husband received one, and I also received a text message.
Now, in those phone calls, the man didn't identify himself with the Heisman campaign, did he?
Not that I remember, he said he was from the Midlands Election Commission.
And he didn't tell you to vote for Max Heisman, did he?
No, not that I could recall. You know, I just kind of felt like he didn't want me to vote at all, which was why I was so upset about it.
Well, specifically, he didn't tell you to vote for Max Heisman.
No, not that I can remember.
He didn't tell you not to vote for Elizabeth Ginger, did he?
No, like I said, I just kind of felt like from the phone call that he didn't want me to vote at all. That's what he was telling me, is that I couldn't.
Well, he didn't tell you that you couldn't, he just outlined some requirements, right?
Well, he called me and told me that I had to own a home, and I live in an apartment complex. So I couldn't vote according to that phone call.
This is why directing you back to my original question. He didn't tell you who to vote for, did he?
No, he didn't.
And that text message that you received, that person didn't identify themselves for the campaign, did they?
No, they didn't. And it was the same number that had called me from the Midlands Election Commission.
And they still didn't tell you who to vote for?
No.
And this is why, just to be clear, you don't think that those came from the Heisman campaign, do you?
Well, I think that it kind of helped out the Heisman campaign, but I don't think it really came from Mayor Heisman himself.
You don't think that Max Heisman had anything to do with those, did you?
Right, I don't think that Mayor Heisman sent the text message or called me, you know, herself. I think that it probably helped Mayor Heisman.
Well, you don't think that she had anything to do with it, do you?
Right, personally, I don't think that at all.
Well, the person handing out flyers at the election, he didn't identify himself with any campaign, did he?
Not that I remember, no.
He didn't tell you who to vote for?
No, like I said, he handed me a flyer that said I couldn't vote.
Well, he didn't tell you who to vote for?
No, he didn't. He said I couldn't vote at all based on the flyer.
Well, did you speak to this man?
Yeah.
Did you tell him that you weren't a college graduate?
No, he just handed me a flyer that said I couldn't vote if I didn't have a college degree.
And just to be clear, you still voted, right?
I did. I felt a little intimidated, but I decided that I already decided I was going to try to vote no matter what had happened, you know, and I did eventually get to vote.
So you received the flag,
I did, yeah.
and you still voted?
Right. You know, I decided before, you know, I even got to the polls that no matter what happened, I was going to ask somebody who, you know, was actually from the polling place whether or not I could vote. And I did end up getting to vote, yes.
So you received the flag and you still voted?
That's true. It was a long process, but I was able to do it.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any objections?
No, I asked that the witness be able to step down.
The witness is excused. Thank you.